In your head, zombies are on The Walking Dead, and that's what this episode was about. I talked with actor on 911 Lone Star and a lot of other stuff that you've seen, Brian Michael Smith, as well as great, smart, nerdy guy from Comic Book Club Live, Alex Zalben, was back. And they told me about this show where you watch all your favorite characters die and try to convince me that that's entertainment. Ha ha! Sadness. Welcome to Don't Mind If I Don't. I'm your host, Aaron Gold. This is the show where I don't like things, and fans and experts come on and convince me why I am wrong, so hopefully I can enjoy all those conversations at the work kitchen instead of just standing there bitter and like, oh, it sounds dumb. Today we're talking about the cultural phenomenon The Walking Dead, the TV show, the comic, the video games, the general fears of it actually happening, the spin-offs, the all of it. I like it. But we've got two people who are very often smarter than me and definitely cooler than me. So let's see if we can't convince me to be a better person. Starting with a returning guest, host of Nerdist's Comic Book Club Live, if I want words to sound right, and managing editor for TV Guide, Alex Zalben is here.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Thanks for coming back, man. How's it going?
It's going pretty well. I'm excited to talk about The Walking Dead.
How are you wearing? It just clicked with me that you were wearing both a long sleeve button down and a sweater. It is like 80 outside. I am literally leaking.
Here's the thing. If the zombie apocalypse happens, I have to be ready to head north.
Fair, but won't your sweat pheromones attract them?
That's not how that works.
Do you have
They're
pheromones?
attracted to my meat. I don't. Yes, I think we all have pheromones.
Speaking of pheromones, our other guest is actor, comedian, and huge Walking Dead fan, Brian Michael Smith.
What up?
Hey, buddy.
How you doing, man? Glad to be here.
Glad to see you again.
Yeah.
We're real life friends
Yes,
who and former coworkers, but I don't work there
We're
anymore.
also sweater mates. I held onto a sweater for a little bit of time because I liked your pheromones.
Oh, yeah, you had my hoodie.
I did.
Oh, buddy. This is getting romantic. Also, as always, my co-producer, the man that makes this thing happen, Grant Michael Goldberg, is here.
That's pretty good.
Oh, he sounds happier today. Two guys with Michael as a middle name / first name.
Yes.
We're doing it.
This is happening.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have a special bond.
I don't know why that got me. Okay, so everything on this show gets rated on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 being my total ambivalence, 10 being blood-curdling hatred. When I'm just thinking about The Walking Dead, it clocks in at a 5.
Okay.
When I interact with The Walking Dead, playing the game, the Telltale game that Alex, you recommended, or watching any of the shows, that goes up to an 8.
Oh.
I don't like this shit. This is so depressing. There's nothing. It's all tension. It's all bummer, and it's all like there's no happy ending. It's just waiting for your favorite characters to die. So my question is, what is wrong with you two? What is wrong with you guys and everybody else that loves this fucking show, this phenomenon? Why do you like The Walking Dead?
Well, first of all, you explained your scale, and then I mixed it around in my head. So when you said 8, I was like, oh, we got him. We did it.
No,
Podcast
you way
over.
don't got
Yeah,
me.
no, it's the opposite.
This is one of the higher rated ones we've done.
Wow. All right. And I don't know. I guess I could start. I mean, I think just simply put, the thing that I think works about The Walking Dead, it originally started with this idea that Robert Kirkman, the creator of the comic book, said, hey, what happens after the Dawn of Dead movies? What happens if you continue? You know, you get this nice ending at the end of the movie. Everybody's like, we're sailing off into the distance. But his idea was like, you know, there's still a lot of zombies out there, you guys. So what happens as this continues, as this goes on with no ending? And currently he has no plans to end the comics. They have no plans to end the TV show. So yeah, you're right. By definition, it has to keep being a bummer. But at its best, the TV show presents some of the best action on TV ever. The characters can be shockingly deep. And particularly in recent years, it's played with structure like no other show on TV. That's something that I think gets brushed under the rug a lot. So All right, let's talk about the continuity of showrunners, which is super fascinating for everybody. So Frank
I'm
Darabont.
into it.
No, I think it's really interesting. So Frank Darabont started the show with Robert Kirkman. It didn't work out. They did 6 episodes in the first season. There was some behind-the-scenes stuff going on. Frank Darabont actually shot the season 2 premiere, and then they scrapped it and replaced him with, oh my God, what's the guy's name? It's Glenn something.
Nicotero.
No, Greg
Nicotero. Greg Nicotero's still in there.
Greg Nicotero, by the way, we should like sidebar Greg Nicotero in a moment because he's the other thing that makes the show amazing. We'll come back to that.
Oh, I didn't know how that
Glenn
sentence was going to end. It was
Mazzara?
either going to end
Mazzara?
amazing or terrible.
Mazzara?
Mazzara.
Yeah, Glenn Mazzara.
Yeah.
So Glenn Mazzara, who I believe did The Shield and a couple of other things, took over with season 2.
So just any depressing show that's just going to end poorly for everyone you care about.
Right. But
Gotcha.
Yeah. But there was this guy, Scott Gimple, working there pretty much the entire time. I think he came in halfway through the first season or started the second season as a writer. And he wrote some of the show's best episodes, ended up taking over as a showrunner about halfway through season 3 and full-fledged in season 4. And season 4, the beginning of season 4, is where he starts to clear away all of the other stuff and make his own way. And with the set, I know this seems like a while, but you can even start here and it's fine. The second half of season 4 is when he starts playing with time and structure of the seasons, the episodes. He breaks each 16 episode season into 8 episodes each. And the second, correct me if I'm wrong again, but I think the second half of season 4, the entire group is split apart. And so episodes take place kind of at the same time. Like you'll have an episode and you'll follow 2 characters and then you'll see 2 other characters. They never cross, but like there's an explosion in the distance halfway through and you're like, oh, okay, that's how that connects to that episode.
Oh, wait, okay. So one of the episodes you had me watch was The Grove.
Oh, yes.
And now
yes.
is that, I'm assuming on some other episode they explain the big fire that's going on.
Exactly.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so that's exactly the thing where it's like they're not forcing it in the tradition of the best shows. It's just kind of there as coloring. But when you start to connect in your mind, you start to make these thematic connections as well. And that's something after he set it up in that second half of that 4th season, he started playing with more in season 5 and season 6. Season 5, the beginning of season 5, that's the one, that's the first Alexandria season, right?
No. That's Terminus.
That's Terminus. Terminus, that season premiere is nuts. That's basically like their big action movie.
Oh, wait, was this the one that started with, like it turns out, oh, these guys are cannibals?
Yep.
All right. Oh, by the way, I probably should have said this heads up. If you're a casual Walking Dead fan, probably a lot of spoilers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. We'll talk about pretty much everything.
everything.
But the one that I actually
I know
want to
you
talk
weren't
about-
expecting anyone to get eaten on The Walking Dead, but
Yeah, well, here's a little fun fact. Do you watch Gotham by any chance?
oh boy.
Uh-oh.
All right. Ooh,
Wait, are we taking a side podcast
Yes,
right
we
now?
are.
yeah. No, I want to do a Gotham episode. I watched the first season, and it very quickly became a hate watch.
I was going to say, it looks like you're sitting at a 10 right about now.
Oh,
we
I do
can,
not
we can
like
side
Gotham.
note about that. I'll
The
come
only
back
thing
on. We'll talk
Gotham
about
did right was Zaz. Zaz they did amazingly. Everyone else
Watch
is
season
just-
2. It's bananas.
No,
No.
but okay.
Okay. All right. Well, it's a separate podcast.
All right.
All I was
Yeah.
going to say is Robin Lord Taylor, who plays the
The
Penguin,
Penguin.
on
He's-
Gotham.
His performance is great.
He is in the season 5 premiere.
I saw.
It's very quick. They murder him.
Yeah.
It's kind of great. But what I actually wanted to talk about was the season 6, the first half. Before the podcast was on, I was calling it Rick's No Good, Very Bad Day because it essentially takes place over like a day and a half, 2 days, and just the worst shit imaginable happens nonstop, and it's the most balls to the wall thing that they've ever done. It's
This is where
incredible.
they and again spoilers, but I mean you've been warned. This is where they kill Stephen Yeun, right? That's
Kind
season
of.
six.
No, this is where you think they've killed Stephen Yeun and they don't. That season 7 premiere is excruciating and intense in its own way. We could definitely talk about that because there's a mixed reaction. My point being, I feel like I've talked about this for a while. My point being is like they start playing around with time. They start playing around with the structure. They make sure that every big death episode has a different weight to it and a different tone to it. When, spoiler, Tyrese, played by Chad Coleman, dies, it's an entire episode that plays out like a dream. And it's one of the most eerie episodes they've ever done. So there's mixed things that happen. You know, there's mixed levels of acting. There's sometimes when they get into this rut of doing like, what is life like now? And that's not great. But at the same time, just structurally and visually what they're doing, it's like no show else on TV. And emotionally, the way that it connects with the fans, the way it has grown, the way that it encompasses things. There are very few shows that can emotionally affect me, or video games as well. We really should talk about that as The Walking Dead. And I've talked for a while, so
No, there's a lot of things that he's saying that I definitely agree with, especially about the storytelling. You say you don't like zombies. I don't feel like it's a show about zombies.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Let me add a caveat to that. I don't have a problem with zombies in essence.
Right.
Like I don't futile efforts is what I find depressing.
Right.
Like, there have been zombie things that I've been okay with, or zombie. I'm replaying the Mass Effect games right now, and husks, they come around. I'm not freaked out by them, and they're fun to kill.
right.
But it's just the idea of the hopelessness. But go on.
And
Yeah.
that's something that I think has kept me drawn into the show, because for me, there was such a hopelessness that you experienced just in the pilot when he's by himself.
Yeah.
The entire world to him is obliterated, and his wife and son are gone, and you feel hopeless, but they always find a way to go on. And that has been the thing that has got me on. How do you go on after this? And then they do, and then there's these wonderful moments of life. Like, how do you find life in such a dead place? And they do. And the way that the storytelling brings that about, after something very, very terrible happens to Rick early on, this guy,
Go ahead
Herschel,
and
Herschel brings him back from kind of like the darkness. He had to do some things. He had to kill his best friend, and I feel like the first season and even the second season, he's doing his best to be a good guy, and then he realizes that in being a good guy, he is getting people killed. So there's this moral thing that he's trying to hold on to, the way that you probably would if the situation happened to you, right? You're trying to hold on to the thing that makes you good, but in doing that, you're killing the people that you love. So he kind of gives up because, he loses some of the things that are very valuable to him. And so, I think it's a big one in season 4, Herschel's teaching him how to hang on to life. And he gives up the fighting part to become a farmer, to grow life and to spend time with his son and cultivate actual life. So even though they are literally in a prison, the amount of life they were able to cultivate within a prison was it moving, and you want it gives you more buy-in. So just when you think Jesus Christ, we can't lose anything else, they grow something else, and then you get attached to it, and you're walking with it, and now they bring even more conflict for you to explore before something else happens. You know what I mean?
Now, I've heard that theory before. I've heard that defense of The Walking Dead before, and my counter argument is that the cost of the ticket ain't worth the ride. Because so let's take The Grove, for example. Now, this is the episode where Tyrese and Carol are with those two blonde little girls, the sisters, and one of them is all doesn't quite understand the walkers.
She's a sociopath.
She's a sociopath, but they make it so cute. And
I don't think it's cute.
No, it's just she's a child.
She's a child, but you can't quite tell if she's a sociopath or
traumatized.
Traumatized to the point of, oh, you broke.
That's the thing. Just that question. Is she crazy or is she broken?
Yeah.
And can we save her? And she's a child. We're going to try to save her. But what happens when you make these decisions? Because every decision that the people that have made in the show that have caused some sort of demise is fuck, I would have did that too. Or the opposite, where I'm fuck that, kill that kid. But it's would I really do it?
Well, that's we're jumping around a little bit, but just to touch on The Grove for a second, it does present these unenviable decisions across the board, which is why I think it's a fascinating episode. Also, Melissa McBride is arguably the best actress.
She plays Carol?
Yes.
Yeah, on the show. She's incredible.
One of my arguments for this whole show is just, if you watch nothing else, just watch it for Carol.
Yeah, her evolution.
I will say this, I can't knock the acting on the show across the board. Boondock Saints was gaining cult popularity when I was in high school and college. I'm not going to hate on Norman Reedus. Everybody, John Barenthal is
incredible,
so good.
He rubs his head a lot.
Yeah, he. I could go for a full hour talking about John Barenthal as the Punisher on Daredevil. He was perfect.
He's great.
And I feel like he cut his teeth for that role on Shane.
Yeah, he got it because of that.
Oh, yeah.
Because he actually reached out to Marvel and said, I want to play Punisher
Yeah.
when he was done with Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Now, what I was going to say, though, is when you're watching The Grove, I love The Grove. I understand if you might find it too grim because, they're killing a child and stuff like that.
Killing many child.
That's not great. But when you're watching TV, it can involve you and you can interact with it, but only up until a point, right? It's still, you got that glass there or the plastic or whatever, and it's keeping you removed. This is why I was surprised to hear you say how much you dislike the Telltale games. Now, for those who haven't played the Telltale games,
Yeah, let's get to
they're
this.
essentially like modern age choose your own adventures, essentially, right? I mean, there's some light action elements every once in a while where you fight a zombie, but ultimately it's a different storyline that takes a side trip from the main story. It follows different characters for the most part with some guest stars. But you need to make these choices and you make them on a timed series. You have a certain amount of time to do it.
Yeah.
To me, this is why the Telltale game are the best Walking Dead thing out of all the Walking Dead things, is because you are actually making these decisions, and the way that they've programmed the software, it ultimately you get to pretty much the same place at the end, but your decisions have consequences. So if you're mean to somebody, they remember it and are less likely to help you later on. Or if you kill a character, maybe another character takes their place, but they're dead, they're gone.
Yeah.
And so when you're watching The Walking Dead or you're reading the comic book, somebody else is controlling that story. With the Telltale game, that is the first time that I ever really felt the weight of these decisions and knowing, oh my God, I have to make these choices. How do you make these choices? And if you don't make a choice, it makes a choice for you just because you have not made that choice. And that's exactly what it would be in life, exactly what you were talking about. That's why I find that game gets so into the essence of what The Walking Dead is.
Well, I downloaded it for my phone. I started playing it. And I'll admit that I did not get far before that sense of dread and unfun that I had been feeling since I pressed start.
Yeah.
Just won out, and I was like, I'm done. I'm gonna listen to a podcast.
Yeah.
Just because there's so much tension.
Yes.
So if you're going to play the Telltale game, I'll just ruin the first little bit for you because it's not really a spoiler. You're in the back of a cop car. You've been arrested, and basically the outbreak is first happening. Car accident. The kind cop who arrested you is just doing his job, or he was transferring you. Guess what? He's a zombie now, and you've got to shoot him in the face. So you're panicking. You're doing all this stuff, and you're just feeling around, and just all of it was such dread, and it made me realize, isn't watching The Walking Dead or interacting with any of The Walking Dead, isn't it kind of masochistic?
Hold on. That's a good question, but I have to ask you something.
Yeah.
Did you not get to Clementine?
Tell me about it.
Clementine is the best Walking Dead character out of anything, out of the TV show, out of the comic books, out of the games, anything like that. She is a little girl that the main character meets, and that is the emotional heart. I'm not going to lie to you and say that the game doesn't get less tense. It gets more tense as it goes on. It's really hard to play at certain times, but it also hold on.
I want to do this. All right, go ahead.
But it emotionally involves you, and you follow the story and you feel the story, and it also gets across that sense of hope, where the TV show often feels like this churn sometimes that it's going through of, it gives you a little hope just to take it away, and here's a little hope to take it away. The video game, I don't want to say it ultimately ends on hope, but it really is this story of Clementine and this guy who meets Clementine and gives you a sense of moving forward in the world. It's wonderful. So I would urge you, if nothing else, go back, try to power through and play at least the rest of the first part of the game, because I guarantee you'll be hooked.
Yeah, and I feel like the tension throughout the series kind of it undulates a little bit, right? Like, so the first season, even for me, like, I think that's something that I liked, is that I was so on edge because that was the world that the characters were in. Like, they had no protection. They're on the road. They don't know how to process things, and it's a lot going on. But the characters where they were in season 1 versus how they are in season 6 and how they even respond to the zombies is one thing, right? But I think something that really keeps me hooked into it is the people and what happens even when they encounter other groups of people, and like how different people have adapted to the world that you're in, and things that they can either take away from them or get away from them.
Now, I think that's, in theory, yeah, sign me up. And for all of this, in theory, yeah, this all sounds great, except for that constant tension and just the unrelenting pessimism of it. Like, I mean, it just... You go into The Walking... I would love to watch a zombie show. Like, I love the idea of post-zombie apocalypse, right? Yeah, it already happened. Here's what happens after. I love stories like that.
But you would like it to be they all sit down and have a nice bowl of cereal, or
Which
something
they
like
do. I mean,
Yeah, they
if you
do
get to some of the
occasionally.
episodes in Alexandria, I mean, things were actually doing pretty well. They were able to, kind of get a government going.
Yeah, I'd love to see, like, a government being built on stuff and,
Yeah.
like, oh, every once in a while a zombie attack, but not just...
Well, I think that's
That's what I'm saying, because
Yeah.
I like in the first season, because of where they were, literally, they were under attack all the time because they didn't have a safe haven. But then once they got to the farm, things were safe for a while, so they were able to kind of form and grow and develop the relationships.
But
And
it
there's
just keeps getting taken away from
Here-
them.
here's
that's
what
but that's the key for Aaron. Like, it's
It's all going to
it's a
go
yeah.
poorly. Like, there's no hope.
Well, have you watched television before?
What?
Television, like a
Never heard of
television
it.
show. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So here's how television shows usually work:
Go on.
is that the characters get a little hope and they get a little happiness, but it's taken away to create dramatic tension.
Sure.
And that's what happens at the highest scale possible on The
Yeah,
Walking
no,
Dead.
no.
Except on The Walking Dead, it's in reverse. And in that, in most TV shows or movies, the end is where things come back together. Whereas in The Walking Dead, it tends to be the end of a season or an episode or this or that is where things tend to fall apart. The middle is where things come together and things are peaceful
Yeah.
and things are... And I think that's too much for Aaron.
It is. Like, I'll tell you this. So a couple years ago, I finally sat down to watch The Wire, and I took my shoes off. Is it that smelly? Should I put them back on?
What? No.
No, you're
Oh,
good.
What are you
okay.
talking about, dude?
Oh, no.
We had no idea.
Never mind. Okay.
I leaned away from the mic to breathe in.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I was watching The Wire, and after I think season 3 or 4, I just stopped because it ended on a happy note. Or as I knew that with The Wire, there's no good ending that's going to come from this, and it ended, with what's his name, McNulty or something. Like, he's a beat cop, he's happy with it. Everyone's at peace for the most part. And I started the next season with the school, and just immediately I was like, oh God, all these kids are it's going to go bad for everyone. And I just am perfectly at peace stopping there. And maybe I'm a sucker for a happy ending. Maybe I just have this little annoying thing in my heart called hope. But it's just so... I have depression. I don't need that in my entertainment.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, and this is a bit of a spoiler, you're going to love season 9 of The Walking Dead. It's not out yet.
Yeah. I thought we were gone
This
down
is-
7.
Yeah, no. They're,
But it's where they're going, and
Yeah.
I feel like honestly, it seems like there isn't much hope, but that's the theme of this entire show is hope and where it manifests and how they keep going on. They were literally on the open road and they got to the CDC and they realized that there's nothing left. Like that, you get to the CDC and you think, oh my God, there's hope. We're safe now. And then you come to find out everybody's infected. So it's never going to end. So that was like a devastating blow. But then they keep going. Then they get to the farm and it's like, all right, well, we're here and we got some time and some space. There's other people. So something can happen here. There's hope. My wife is pregnant. Someone's going to have a baby. There's hope, for a world after this. And then some terrible things happen. They get to the prison and they're like, all right, we got this prison. We got more people here and there's some hope. And then they get to Woodbury and okay, there's some more. And but no matter what happens, no matter what gets taken away, they always gain more as they keep going. Like now they're in Alexandria and it seems like it's a haven. It's under attack. But because of that, now they're connected to some other communities and now they're going to war for creating the safe place that they need. You know what I mean? So it's like things are happening, but everything that happens and it gets taken away, they get more in return.
Yeah.
So it's not totally hopeless. It's horrible, but it's not hopeless.
Okay, so it's kind of like you're driving down the highway and you see a car accident.
Yeah.
And you can't quite turn away.
Right.
You got to watch the wreckage, if for no other reason than to see them be okay.
And for this one, it's like I gotta drive through this fucking wreckage, which sucks because if I don't drive through it, I'm it's like death here or like wreckage and leaving these people behind. I got to keep going. And then you keep going, but then you get somewhere that was like, thank God I got here. And then something happens to that place. Like, all right, we got to keep going. We pick up some more stuff. Let's go. And
well, how long do those moments of rest, those moments of
they
euphoria
actually last a
last?
while. Like, especially the way the storytelling, the mechanisms would change. You could go for a good amount of episodes with a nice build. The characters are starting to understand things. They're starting to go. They even get a chance to heal from some of these traumas, which you don't think that they can. Like Carol in season 2 discovered that her daughter is gone, and you think like there's nothing else. But then you watch as she starts to build and grow into like a stronger person than she ever was before the things happened. That's something that I find incredible about the show.
That's actually one of the reasons that fans of the show, found the last season so difficult to watch is because it was actually unrelentingly grim most of the time.
Yeah.
That for those who didn't watch the show, you probably heard about this anyway, but there's this new guy named Negan, who's a big bad guy with a wire-rimmed bat, a baseball bat named Lucille, lines up all of the heroes, does an eeny, meeny, miny, mo game where he's going to kill one of them, and season 6 ended on a cliffhanger. You didn't know who was going to be killed. And then they picked up after the summer on this cliffhanger, drew it out even longer over the course of an entire episode, ended up very graphically killing 2 people. And then earlier I mentioned how they play with structure. The first half of the season was all the characters dealing with their grief. Almost every episode started Lost style with somebody waking up and opening their eyes. And it was all them getting out of this slumber, getting out of this horrible funk of watching their friends graphically die in front of them. And it was really hard to watch through. It was really hard to deal with. And then the second half of the season was them slowly figuring out how to get out of that
in their different ways too.
In their different ways, but it was 16 episodes of actual grimness. So if you take that and you compare it against earlier seasons, that hope is there. Like you can see.
Yeah, that doesn't make me want to watch this.
Well, you don't have to watch that. But what I'm saying is that the criticism that everybody has always lobbed at The Walking Dead was definitely there in the last season, but it shows you how much it was not quite there in previous seasons.
Okay, so that's like a high school bully, you telling him, hey, stop being mean to me, and him going, oh, that wasn't mean. I'll show you mean.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't want to hang out with that kid. Like,
I don't know. Eventually it turns out to be okay when you get drinks later on.
Yeah.
I mean, once you both graduate high school, like, let me know when The Walking Dead, the college years kicks in.
Season 9, I tell you, season 9.
And where they're going right now. I mean, honestly, especially the way this season went. I mean, I did it took me a while. I let my DVR just build episodes. I was so just devastated from the opening, and then the question was brought up. I'm like, how do they get over this? And they did, to the point where I think it was the mid-season finale this year where I'm just like, fuck yes, because they started to pick up these pieces, and you want them to, and it's not, and it seemed very hopeless after what happened, but then who they were able to sort of rally and how the size that they were able to amass of this group, you realize it's not just these 5 characters. They're actually doing something more than who they are. And it's something massive is building. And I like that because it was so disparate. I think the 6th season opened up. It's like they literally were The Walking Dead. The survivors were The Walking Dead. I mean, they looked like zombies. They had nowhere to go. They were walking from Atlanta to fucking Virginia, and they had nothing, and they're starving, and it's just bad. And so they were able to put literally an army, a fucking empire together to see what they're going to do. It's like, not only do you have hope, you're interest. What are they going to create now that they have all this here?
All right. Well, since the aim of the podcast is to get me to like the thing,
how are we doing so far? Real well, right?
I mean, no, I'm starting to understand a bit more. But what if I just jump in at this most recent season without the emotional attachment to everybody that has been tortured for fucking 6 seasons? Both of you seem very lost in thought.
Well, I mean, because it's not like it's impossible, but there's just something that's so beautiful about it is where they are now. compared to where they were in the first season, it's beautiful to watch in terms of like just the acting and then the storytelling. Like it's like we talk about Carol, just see where Carol was at the beginning to who she is right now. Rick has gone through like many iterations, but it's kind of cool to see. Even Michonne, who showed up in season 3, who she was, and then not just how vibrant and complex she is right now. I mean,
well, let's try a different tactic.
Yeah.
Earlier, we mentioned Greg Nicotero, and we never came back to him. So,
Yeah.
Greg Nicotero is FX dude. He's done tons and tons of movies
What
with
has
the
he
studio. I don't know offhand. I know he's done Walking
IMDb.
Dead. Well, here's the thing: is I can tell you pretty distinctly exactly what he's done on Walking Dead. He started as the FX supervisor. They started doing web series between the seasons. He directed the first web series. Then he started directing episodes of the series. Eventually worked his way up, not eventually, pretty quickly worked his way up to being an executive producer of the series, and is now one of the main guys behind the series and directs most of the season openers and season closers.
Oh.
And he's incredible. His shop, what they create in terms of the effects and the gore and everything.
Yeah, he
is
did Inglorious.
stunning.
He was makeup on Inglorious Bastards and Kill Bill Volume 1. So
Yeah.
that
So now
should
you're
tell
sold.
you.
So he, beyond being a super nice dude and very funny and down to earth,
Oh, and
he,
Evil Dead too.
yeah, that's always a pleasant thing to learn about a person. Each episode they have some sort of standout scene or standout walker or something like that. Going back to the very beginning of the show, they had Bicycle Girl, which is the girl that's like half in the ground, half out of the ground next to
just
a bicycle.
starving to death.
Yeah, and it's gross and it's gory and it stands out. There's the well walker in Cherokee Rose, which is a season 2 episode, which is this walker that's been stuck in a well and bloated and gross. And every episode he finds and his crew finds a new way.
Napalm zombies.
Yeah, the napalm zombies.
Hold on, wait. I
amazing.
want to see the Well Walker.
Oh, yeah, he's
Well
gross.
Walker is
Yeah, he's
one of the most
gross.
famous walkers.
Well
But there's
Walker.
things where like even seasons
Walking Dead.
on, they figured out how to do that. On the season 6 opener, they're in this quarry and they've
Oh,
blocked
gross!
up. Yeah, it's gross.
Yeah.
Isn't it like that? Almost looks like a baby thing.
Yep.
Yeah, and then
Well,
they tied some rope around him and tried to pull him out of the well
doesn't
Why?
go so well.
because
Oh.
he's poisoning the water.
Yeah. So,
Oh, but then doesn't he just split in half? I'm
That's
assuming.
exactly what it
Yeah.
beginning of season 6, they have this thing where there's thousands of walkers trapped behind these 2 trucks, and they start to push through the trucks, and they just their skin gets caught on it,
But they don't
and
care.
and gets torn off, but they keep going. I'm not a huge gore guy, but the creativity that goes into it is, if you like effects, you have to watch the show.
Yeah.
You have to appreciate at least what they're doing there. And the other thing that's interesting about Greg Nicotero, this is something that I kind of mentioned just in general about the episodes, but he tries something different with every episode. Like that Quarry season 6 opener in the Quarry, half takes place in black and white and half takes place in color, and it moves back and forth, and it's kind of neat the way it does it, showing the past scenes and the present scenes. He filmed the Tyrese episode, which is like this crazy dream.
sequence, yeah.
The Terminus episode, which I think you said you watched, the one where they're escaping from Terminus, the cannibal place.
I've
right,
seen
maybe you
like episodes peppered in and out.
Well, it's like a big action movie, basically. So all of these things have different things to offer, and he always directs them so well and in such a different way, and he knows the cast so well that he gets these great performances out of them. So he's something that I watch, maybe not from the emotional perspective, but I appreciate watching. I like it when I see Greg Nicotero's name in the credits as director, but I also know that like he pops up as a walker sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes he's in a scene, and he in the scene, not the one where Glenn died, but where Glenn is eventually, spoiler, trapped under a dumpster. He was directing the scene. And he's like, I got to be in the scene and direct it. Just make me up as a walker. Just make me up a walker. So he's dressed as a walker, and you can see behind the scenes stuff where he's dressed as a walker and he's directing the scene, but also attacking Glenn. It's awesome. It's
wait,
great.
wait. Why did he have to put himself in that? Like, I'm not
Just
knocking
because
it,
he
I'm
wanted
just-
to show, he knows the movements and he wanted to show everybody what to do. So it was like, all right, just follow me, guys. I'm going to do it. Follow me.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which is cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, I'll give it that. So you keep on talking about season 9, and maybe I'm assuming because it follows. I know some of the comic book storylines. So like when I heard about Negan, I knew who was going to get killed. And I'm a big comic book fan. I don't read The Walking Dead because same reasons. But can you, without spoiling for the listener, can you give me a little hint of what's coming in season 9?
Sure. Well, it's what we assume is coming in season
Right.
9. There's season 8 is coming up, and that's going to be the big all-out war with Negan's group, the Saviors.
Right.
After that, there's a little bit of civilization that comes back. I think that's a fair way of saying it
that's
without
a way to
spoiling
say
it.
Yeah.
Which, if you're interested in how government works in this new society,
Yeah, that intrigues me. Like,
Yeah, you should check it out.
Yeah.
There was a novel series that I read the first 1 1/10 of called X Heroes, which is basically the zombie apocalypse happened, but in a world full of a few superheroes.
Yeah.
And like this follows like one group of superheroes in LA who've all come together, and like non-powered individuals who have come together to form this community. I found it really interesting, and I was like really into it until I got to the end, and like some of the deaths were just so gruesome. I was like, this is beyond enjoyable.
Yeah.
And it's not for the gore of it so much as for the hey, never feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Never enjoy this.
Right.
If you enjoy it, haha, gotcha.
Yeah, like it's almost traumatizing. Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like it's
now I would say actually
more stick than carrot.
you might want to read the comics. If you're a comic guy and you're into this sort of stuff, where the show, I think, is much better at the action and just visually being a spectacle. Robert Kirkman writes, like he writes dialogue. It's a lot more talking, discussing of the world, and a lot more resource management a lot of the time. Like there's spans of issues where nobody dies and nothing terrible happens.
Lovely.
But they're trying to figure out how farms work.
And I think that's what's happening in the TV series, but it's just truncated a little bit because people want to see gore. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
people don't watch that for agriculture.
Right, but does it really get you kind of invested in the world? Like it's something I really like about it is that I don't believe in zombies, but this world that they live in seems to be believable, and how they're responding to it seems to be believable. And when you do get a little bit further along, and they do come outside of the prison, and you start to encounter how other groups have survived, how other survivors do it, and you see like that whatever group that Daryl fell in with after season 5, when they're just like. It's just they probably were criminals, before this, right? And it's just they claim things. So if you see the dead rabbit or whatever, then this guy's like claimed it, and like they respect these. They have this weird like coda. So there's like this group of this ragtag guys. Then you have this very peaceful farming group over here, and then where we're at right now in season 7, where you have the Alexandria group, who is this. They've just been in the suburbs, literally in the suburbs, the entire time. They have no concept of the world that the survivors have come from. So how they're running things. They have Deanna, who was a city councilwoman or something like that. So she's running it in a very organized, democratic kind of way. But then you have Negan's group, who has this weird, almost like feudal system going on. Then you actually have a kingdom that's run by this guy, Elijah. And it's, so just to see the hilltop where this guy named Jesus is from, and their community and how they're run. So, you do get to see it. It's definitely more expanded on in the comics, but it's something that's been very interesting to me, since somebody who's watched the show since the beginning, to see like complete destruction and almost hopelessness, to like how they've been able to, how do you rebuild? And like that's what they've been doing. Because I wonder what, like 3 or 4 years have passed, and communities have tried to rebuild. And what happens when some people follow rules and other people don't? Beyond the threat of the walkers and whatnot, how do you keep it going?
No, that strongly intrigues me. Like the idea of it being a zombie show where the zombies are, an undercurrent, but definitely not the doom of it hanging over. Like I like the idea of building back up. I love seeing people pick themselves back up.
You might enjoy more so than seasons like 5 through the present, more so than, because seasons 1 through 3 or 1 through 4 are more about following the main group, and you don't really encounter too many outsiders. It's really just about how they're going to survive.
Season 5 is the one that starts with them fighting back against the one where the penguin dies.
Season 5, they're literally in the wilderness for a little while, but they start to get back towards civilization over the course of that season.
What's the season that starts with penguin dying?
That's season 5.
That is season 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe I could see myself picking up at 5.
Yeah.
Trying it out a little bit, and then maybe if I'm hooked, starting again. Because like I've seen like I think the first season.
Yeah.
Or the first most of the season, and I've seen sporadic episodes.
Right.
like The Grove, like Clear. I had actually already seen, but I rewatched.
Clear is great.
Yeah.
Clear is another example of like, yes, this is very. I'll say The Walking Dead is very good. It's about me enjoying it,
Right,
Sure.
which I can say can be challenged when it gets so intense. I
Does
feel
it?
you, yeah.
Yeah. Does it not feel? So okay, I guess my big question is, what feels good about this? Is it just the small moments of hope, even though you know that that's probably going to get taken away from you? Like, is this not masochistic to you?
No, because what's been awesome, what makes me feel good about the show is people finding their whatever they need at the moment.
Yeah, but then they're going to die.
Not all the time.
How often though? Let's be honest.
Honestly, not all the time. Some of the people who have
More than 50%.
no.
More than 50%, Alex.
Yeah, mostly everybody died.
Yeah, there we go.
But the people that I've responded the most to haven't.
All right.
You know, so like watching Carol's trek and like how she steps up, even Eugene and his struggle, because Eugene is somebody I found fascinating because you think he's one thing and then you come to find out he's not, and he has to accept the fact he's a coward. So how do cowards survive in this world where you think the only people who can really make it are these alpha machismo can handle things, but he's managed to survive as a coward, and his own journey of acceptance of that. You know what I mean? And what that was fascinating for me to experience. And then Carol started out as just this meek, small, like abused housewife, and was just you blink and you wouldn't know she was there. But when you see her in this episode, I can't remember what it was called, but when the wolves attack Alexandria, or before the wolves even attack, like just when she gets to Alexandria, how she knew to camouflage herself as that housewife again, and like so that's what she did. She went undercover as her former self, which that showed me how far she had come, right? And then at the moment where she needed to step up, she's so fucking capable. I mean, like she was under attack. She's walking around like a goddamn ninja, like picking people off. I'm like, what the fuck? So I mean, like things like that really keep me invested in the show beyond just finding the hope with babies being born and things like that. Just people finding it, getting pushed to their limit, finding it, stepping up, and then owning that shit. I love it.
I mean, I feel like I need to strap myself to like a chair and just make myself watch, because I really appreciate the acting. I appreciate the storytelling. I appreciate the direction and the nuance and the makeup and the action. It's all fantastically done. Like the small victory moments mean so much. But I feel like I'm lying to myself whenever I let myself be happy watching it. Like, because I'm like, oh, Aaron, no, this won't last. And if you trust for a second, you're going to get hurt.
That's exactly what I was just thinking is I think you're having trouble with suspension of disbelief. Not that there are zombies or this or that, but your disbelief centers around that things could be okay. And you have to have that to enjoy a show like that. You have to think that at the end of this, there has to be something. But when you watch the show and over again, your favorite character dies or just something terrible happens, it's really hard to believe that, like, oh, this is going somewhere. Did you watch Lost?
We'll talk about that in a second, but you just touched upon something really, really spot on, I think. I think you nailed it, Grant. I
always do.
I think, I think, Walking Dead's like an abusive relationship. You can only be hurt so many times before you realize, okay, you're not going to change. I have to change, and by change I mean goodbye. You've got to protect yourself.
I went through my Walking Dead phase, and the only reason I stopped watching is because a season ended and it dropped off my radar. I didn't stop liking the show. I did stop liking the show around season 2, like season 3, I think is what it was. We were trying to figure this out earlier, where it just became zombie hunting time. Like it was just a lot of zombie hunting, and there wasn't a lot of depth to it. And that's not the issue that you're having or talking about.
No.
But what I did really like about it was when it came back around and it started becoming, I think it was season 4, where there wasn't a lot of zombie hunting. There weren't a lot of like big zombie battles, at least at first or for like most of the season. And then I was like, oh, this show is not about zombies. This show is about people.
Oh man, I can see the pain of you
obvious.
to say that. Yeah.
And you have to believe that this is how people would would behave, and that can be really hard. And so it kind of comes and goes for me, where it's like, I don't know that this is exactly what, like, I don't know if it's right. You know, I don't know. I like it when it feels like the people are more real than the zombie. That's not the word.
No. That makes a lot of sense. Like when the acting is phenomenal across the board.
Yeah,
like
it's not even about the acting. It's that I like when I believe that situation, these people would have behaved this way and caused this problem or solved this problem or whatever. And I think where the show kind of like leaves me hanging a little bit is sometimes that is so unbelievably like real to me, and then sometimes it's so unbelievably not. And it oscillates between this like these extremes of people behaving in the most human way that you never see on television, and then people behaving in the most inhuman way that you're not even sure that people, even with
like Negan.
Yeah, like Negan. Yeah, exactly. Like, why do those people behave that way?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. That question is so on my mind when I'm watching a lot of this. Like, going, just why do that? And I don't understand the character.
Do you watch?
So maybe
this is a little side answer to your question. Have you watched Fear the Walking Dead at all?
I watched little clips of it, but it seemed even more pessimistic.
So here's the thing that I think is really fascinating about Fear the Walking Dead, particularly if you're kind of on the fence about Walking Dead, is it's a prequel. You know, it doesn't have the same characters. It's on different coasts of the country, so they never meet each other and never will until ratings start to flag or something like that. But where Walking Dead is like, well, the apocalypse has happened and now you need to deal with this. And they're constantly talking about, this is the new world. How do I deal with this new world? Fear the Walking Dead is them fighting against it, them being like, no, things will go back to normal any day now. Like, it's the beginning of the zombie movie instead of the end.
Which seems even more pessimistic.
It's pessimistic, but as a character study, it's almost, to me, more fascinating in a certain way, because it's much easier for me to put it myself in the direction of, if this started to happen, what would that be like? Versus it has happened and now I wield two guns and katanas and I'm killing zombies all the time and I'm a badass.
That last one sounds way cooler. Like,
well, all right, then stick with Walking Dead.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is I think just as character studies and as if you're interested in what happens to civilization and how people deal with civilization, that's what Fear the Walking Dead is about. It's about what happens as civilization falls apart versus Walking Dead is how do you build civilization back up?
I think, you know, we've that makes a lot of sense. The big hang up is just any sort of hope. Like, I think if Robert Kirkman pulled me aside and was like, listen, legitimately, The Walking Dead has a happy ending, I think I could buy in for the full thing. Like, I mean, but I just don't believe that.
I mean, it's probably not going to have a happy ending.
Here's the thing.
Or what you think a happy ending would be. Like, that's something I like about the show is that it's so much like life, but just with some things kind of stripped off of it. And I believe that, honestly.
And a couple
people
things
are.
added
I mean,
in,
honestly, right
fair.
now there are people walking down the street right now who are just chopping people up, and we have society. So this is not that.
By the way, sorry, we should mention
this is not that far-fetched.
No,
we're actually recording this on Purge night, which is why you said that. I just wanted to mention this.
Yeah,
Go
no. People are going crazy outside. There are a lot of clown masks. No, I haven't seen The Purge. Are there
Only
clown
seen
masks?
the Rick and
involved?
Morty.
Yeah, pretty much. I did hear that there's a Purge TV show coming out.
There is.
Which is all about the 364 days a year that the Purge isn't happening. I'm like, now that sounds awesome.
Right?
Like, I am really excited by that idea. Yeah. And then just they cut to the movie to fill in. What was my point? Oh, yeah. Yes, it is like life and all that, but I get enough of that from life. Like, I watch TV and play video games and read comics to kind of give myself a little break from that, to give myself a little bit of comfort.
But I guess what I like about it is that even in the worst of the situations, they take life, they strip it down, and it's amplified. So the worst of life is amplified, but then also the best of life is amplified. There are people making these choices that, like, I'm like, I wish I was strong enough to be that honest. I wish I was strong enough to pick up the katana, and like to really question, who would I be in this? Or to see somebody who's like, I would do that. That's me. That's how I make my choices. Fuck, I'm here. So that's something I actually enjoy about the show, to see when the coward is like, I'm not going to be a coward today, or whatever. So, you get it.
You get those small bubbles.
They're huge, but they're huge moments. They're not little bubbles. They are huge moments that carry over into the next episode and keep you going with the person. So, if you're only picking up something here and there, it might seem small. But something that's really awesome about the show and the writing is that it is the textbook slow burn, and everything contributes to everything, and like the payoffs. That's what keeps me going back. Is the fucking payoffs.
Okay, now that is the best argument I've heard for watching The Walking Dead.
Yeah,
I started
because
to
I do love a good slow burn.
Yeah.
Started to ask if you had watched Lost.
Yeah. Here's what I watched of Lost. I watched a few episodes of the first season, an episode or two sporadically, and then all of the last season.
Okay.
After watching the recap,
Cool.
and it was delightful. Like I loved. My favorite part was telling other Lost fans about my viewing patterns, and then like declaring myself a true Lost fan. I never meant it, but oh my god, their skin would crawl. I fueled myself off their hate. Their hate fueled me.
That's why I bring it up, though. First of all of this, like,
Alex is visibly disturbed by this.
Seriously, I'm Lost is my favorite show of all time, and I watched
Mine
it.
too.
God damn it! I watched it week to week, and it was the sort of thing where it'd be like, okay, Lost is on. I'm going to turn off all the lights and nobody talk to me for an hour. Don't look at me. Don't talk to me. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to hear from you. And then the only thing I would talk about between weeks of Lost is Lost. And that's it. Oh, God, your laugh is so evil right now. I'm curious to hear what your point is about Lost.
So
I am refueled.
Yes.
First
all of it worth it just to see your reaction. To
it's
that.
a good look.
I'm full. I feel like I just ate a big turkey dinner.
He has to rehydrate.
I had a friend, operative on past tense, had a friend who constantly would watch Lost and be like, wait, who's that character?
Oh, God.
I'm like, just casually, she would talk about casually watching it in the background while she did other things. And I was like, how do you watch it? How do you do that? How you can't watch it casually?
But that's why she would ask you so many questions.
As a true Lost fan, I don't feel like the ending was earned.
So,
I don't. Yeah.
So my point. Well, first of all, like we owe all of this kind of like super serial TV to Lost, where we kind of don't. You don't know whether the writers, the director, the visionaries, whoever have a real end in sight. Which in Lost owes it to X-Files, and X-Files owes it to this or that. But this is what happened, and we learned from Lost. I think The Walking Dead has learned a lot from Lost, which is that you can't promise a happy ending, because you can never deliver an ending happy enough to justify the experience that you just had. Lost was amazing.
Hold on.
Until the very last minute,
First of all, loved the ending of Lost. I didn't love it. I was very satisfied by it.
That's why I was asking.
Just,
I love
see
it.
the
But
steam emanating
here's the
from
thing: I'm one of the few Lost fans who loves the end of Lost, but I feel like you don't deserve to say that.
I know I don't, and yet here I go. But it's not about the promise of a happy ending. It's about the possibility. I have to believe that there is a chance. I have to at least believe that there is a chance this could end well. I mean, truth be told, if someone said to me, all of these shows that you like, they're always going to end happy.
But that's the interesting.
There's no drama then.
Yeah.
But I have to at least believe in the possibility, and I have zero hope for anyone I like making out of
it's
Lost.
Interesting.
Or Walking Dead.
That's why I can't.
By the way,
I can't watch.
Spoiler: they didn't all make it out of Lost.
Yeah.
I can't watch the Game of Thrones TV show anymore because they've given up on the mystery of it to me. Whereas the books, you're like, they're amazing and wonderful, and you want it to have a happy ending, but you have no idea how it could possibly have a happy ending. Whereas the TV show, more and more and more, they're just giving away what the next payoff is going to be. And I like that The Walking Dead hasn't bought into that yet. You still don't know
Well,
what
the difference is
that's a really interesting comparison that you've just drawn, because I do watch Game of Thrones. And I do still like it despite all the shit I've gone through. And I think that's because they do have an ending in mind that you know that they have. It doesn't matter that I know it or not. I know that they have one, and The Walking Dead is still going on in comics, like 10 years later? Mm-hmm. Like, how long has The Walking Dead comic been going on?
I think you're right. I actually don't know when it debuted, but it is about 10 years.
Yeah. And
a little longer than 10 years. I think they just celebrated the 10th anniversary.
I read like a Walking Dead comic a little bit ago, and I was just like, oh, that seems like a really dark storyline that is gonna come
like
up
we said
in a
earlier,
bit,
there's
but-
no plans to ever end The Walking Dead, and versus Game of Thrones, which I agree with you. I'm the same way, where I love the books. I kind of am starting to hate that the show is like, and it'll be a happy ending,
Exactly.
which I think will never in any world happen to the books. In The Walking Dead, even if Robert Kirkman at some point is like, you know what, I'm tired of writing this comic book, I'm just going to end it. It's still just going to end with like Rick dying. That's going to be the end of the book. It's not, we cured the zombie plague, because that's not even on the table. I mean, they say in the first season and in the book, the zombie virus is in them. It's not going away. It's the world is not necessarily going back to the way it was before ever. This is really a story of Rick Grimes and the people he meets and the things that happened. And the happy ending is still him dying, which means he wakes up as a zombie a couple of minutes later. That's the end of The Walking Dead. There is no end.
Do they ever explain what the virus is?
They never will.
They haven't figured it out either, because the CDC, was destroyed before they could figure it out.
Yeah, that's just not a thing that's going to happen. They're never going to do that.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
And I will say one thing I really do respect about The Walking Dead is that it's a show where they don't have to explain that, and you're still perfectly satisfied, and that is a rare story. Okay, so maybe I'll watch like season 5.
Yeah.
Watch 2 or 3 episodes.
But,
and
two or
you
three
see it.
episodes.
I say just keep push through, man, because the payoff is worth it. I mean, I don't
So
know
many
what's
other
going
things
to
to
happen.
watch that
5 is
actually
very
make me
good.
feel good, though.
I would say
You will. I mean, I'm not saying like you're going to feel great like the whole time all the way through, but man, like when you if you say you like slow burns, when you do get those moments, it's almost cathartic. It's like fucked up, but it's like okay.
And I will say I'm a big fan of characters changing slowly over time. I think like the best example I've ever seen of that off the top of my head is from Buffy and Angel, Wesley, who like started out as the most meekest, cowardly nerd bravado guy, and then towards the end of Angel
That's
is just
Carol.
total badass.
That's
Like,
fucking Carol. You could even argue that's Carol. I could say the same thing for Glenn
There's so many
and
characters.
Daryl. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even Carl. Like, I mean, Carl's a contentious character, but if you watch like what little Carl was when you first meet him to kind of where he is now and like why he is the way he is, it's like fuck.
Yeah.
And where that kid's going, like even if The Walking Dead ended with Rick Grimes' death, you're going to go with Carl.
That's the thing, is that The Walking Dead can't end because like we all just want Rick to die. Not because we hate the character, but because it's almost one of those elements that takes you out of the story. It's like there's no reason for him to survive. There's no reason for anyone to survive. The story goes on regardless. It's not about a hero. It's not about one person.
One last question about all of this. Does this show more often than not just depress the shit out of you?
yeah.
No.
Well, hold on.
We're on different sides of the spectrum because for me, it doesn't depress me. It just leaves me wondering, like, curious, like, what do we do now? Like, that's how, like, and I think that's kind of the undercurrent of the show. What do we do now? Every day, like, every time I end that show, I'm like, what do we do now? Which is why I tune in the next week. So, and it's not a depressing, like, fuck, but it's like, well, what do we do now? And even in the moments where I was like, you know, I think I was literally depressed after the season opener of this season. Like, this shit fucked me up. But I had to go back to like, what do we fucking do now? And to figure that out. So it can depress me, but not all the time.
And Alex, counterpoint?
Yeah, sure. It depresses me a whole lot. I mean, I think the things that I've talked about are the things that keep me watching the show are the characters, the actors. I haven't really talked about it much, but like I have a number of very personal experiences that have happened with the cast of the show over years, which I can't talk about. They're not like private personal experiences or anything like that. Me and Norman Reedus are in love. It's not a big
Right.
deal. I don't want to talk about it.
You and every other girl that shops at Hot
Yes,
Topic.
exactly. Well, so without being too mysterious, but very quickly, one of my first media jobs was working for AMC. I was writing for their blogs at the time, and I was a big fan of the Walking Dead comics. And when I heard they were doing the show, I was like, anything you want me to do with Walking Dead, I will do with Walking Dead. And so at San Diego Comic-Con and New York Comic-Con and a couple of other instances, I ended up being the booth photographer and the social media person for Walking Dead during the first couple of seasons when I was still walking at AMC.
And for those of us that aren't familiar with Comic-Con or what booth photographer...
So basically it was like they had the booth for The Walking Dead, which they had set up, I think this was season 2, and it was like a huge forest, something like that. I don't remember exactly, but they've gotten more and more elaborate booths each time, and they have people sign in the booth. So I was in the booth like standing between Norman Reedus and Andrew Lincoln when there's thousands of fans crowded around this booth. Norman Reedus is supposed to be signing things. Instead, he jumps out of the booth. And so I'm the guy who had to take pictures of all of this stuff. And then during the panels, I would live tweet them and I'd write about them for the website. So like very early on, I was very emotionally involved in the show as well as financially involved in the show. But over time, I've interviewed the cast tons and tons of times. And they're one of my favorite casts to talk to. They... as much as the fans care about the show and love the show, and that's something that it doesn't necessarily affect every viewing experience. It's not going to affect your viewing experience necessarily, but to me, it does mean something. You could feel it on stage too. Like the panels are, I've been to a lot of Comic-Con panels, like a lot of Comic-Con panels, and the Walking Dead panels are arguably, along with probably maybe Marvel TV panels, which are also kind of like a revival meeting. But Walking Dead panels, they're funny. They clearly like each other. The fans go bananas for this stuff. And they're great. I mean, all leading up to the season 6 premiere was held in Madison Square Garden. Yeah. And they packed Madison Square Garden with 20,000 people. Norman Reedus rode it on a motorcycle. You heard 20,000 people screaming. They played games with them. Every dead cast member surprise showed up, and then they showed off the episode. And I'm super into fan experiences. Like when you get all the fans that all love things the same way in the same place at the same time, it's something magical happens. And so something like that is just truly wonderful. So those experiences have been to the set twice, and I can't really talk about it too much, but it's incredible and will blow your mind just the way that they put this stuff together.
So maybe we need to awaken that thing that I have for like Marvel movies and TV, and try and get that fandom going in me to really appreciate The Walking Dead.
I mean, maybe what drives your Marvel fandom? Is it the continuity of the comics, or is it more about the actors, or...
I do love a great evolving story, and in the comics, I love seeing different people inherit the mantles, and like I love seeing the different ways they're written. Though I haven't been as up to date on comics. I guess that the TV, I don't know. Like I just like superpowers, and I like badasses.
Well, here's what I'd say.
I like putting that in very grounded scenarios. So like Jessica Jones and Daredevil, I think are the two best that Marvel TV has done.
Yeah. I've been drawn into fan bases often because of passionate fans. Like, to give you a really ridiculous example, years and years ago, NSYNC was doing a concert at the Today Show as part of their morning series. This is a really long time ago. And a friend and I were walking back from seeing a movie in Times Square. We passed by and people were waiting out to see NSYNC. And we were like, we have nothing to do tomorrow. Let's wait out to see NSYNC. And so all night we ended up talking to these NSYNC fans who were like the most diehard NSYNC fans. I was more of a BSB guy myself, but talking to them,
Battlestar Galactica.
Exactly. But talking to these NSYNC fans, like I didn't necessarily become. I'm a diehard NSYNC fan now, but spending time with them and talking to them and understanding why they love this thing made me understand it better. So when it comes to something
Which is pretty much this podcast.
Exactly. There you go. So you're welcome for inventing it. But also maybe something you want to do. There's two things that I'd recommend if that's something that draws you in. Is one, there's these things called Walker Stalker cons that happen all over the country, which are Walking Dead specific conventions. And the fan base of Walking Dead is so nice and so passionate about the show and this idea we've been talking about of hope and love and compassion that doesn't in my opinion, always come through across on screen, but it comes through on the cast, and it clearly comes through these fans. That might be an interesting experience for you. And then the other thing on a micro scale, since we're here in New York, just go to the Walking Dead panel at New York Comic Con, and you'll see thousands of fans freaking out about
If I
this
can
thing.
get in.
If you can get in.
Yeah.
But I mean, really try to get in if you can, like wait online if this is something you're super interested in, and you'll get a sense of that experience. Because one thing I know, again, from interviewing the cast tons and tons of times, unless you're doing a post-mort on an episode, they can't talk about anything.
Yeah.
So it just ends up being these conversations where you're joking around with them about stuff, and they're always on panels just goofing off because they can't say anything about the show.
Right.
So it's just fun to watch them. They're good people who are enjoy and love their jobs, and that comes through the fans.
Yeah, the one huge panel I've seen at Comic-Con, because I'm just not a fan of lines. Right before Jessica Jones debuted, I got to get into the Marvel TV screening panel of that. And, David Tennant wasn't there. And, like, the audience is going, where's David Tennant? Because everyone else is here. Right. And they were like, we got a little video message from David. And he popped up on the screen and like, hey, I'm in England. I wish I could be there. But do have a little treat. We've got a clip from Jessica Jones for you. And the audience freaks out. But then instead of that playing, the lights come back up. And one of the showrunners comes out and goes, I have to apologize. David actually had some misguided information. We do not have a clip for you guys. And the audience boos, and immediately my heart stops because I knew what was about to happen.
He's coming.
And he's like, we've got the entire first episode. Yeah. And so I got to see the entire first episode of Jessica Jones, and like, I'm such a huge fan of her from the comics. I think Brian Michael Bendis is one of the best writers for dialogue, period. Another Michael middle name.
Yes. Very strong. And
yeah. Okay, so I can try and associate from that fandom. All right, so if we started out with me at an 8, hating this thing, okay, I think I can try and adapt my fandom forward a little bit. Maybe start in later seasons and see if the bait on the hook will get me enough to go back and rewatch from the beginning. Yeah. I know I'll miss out on certain small things, but I mean, like, if I've just got to watch the entire thing with my heart in my throat, that's just not going to play.
Yeah.
So, all right, if we start out with me at an 8, I'd say we're knocked down to like a 4. Maybe a 3 or 4. Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm still very apprehensive, but I've seen the footholds for how I can climb this mountain. I'm going to give it a shot.
All right.
Yeah. Brian, Michael, Alex, do you guys have anything you'd like to plug?
Well, yeah, I'm out here in the world. I'm going to act, as I say, I got an episode of Queen Sugar coming out in the summertime, so take a look at that. It's on the OWN network. Some fun things. And, if you want to find out what I'm up to, you can check out thebrianmichael.com or follow me on Twitter at thebrianmichael.
The Brian Michael.
There's other ones.
Bendis is shaking his fist at you.
I'm the one.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Zalben, AZALBEN. Also, I do Comic Book Club Live, which is a weekly live talk show about comic books with comedy guests and comic book guests. We do it every Tuesday at the Pit Loft, and that is recorded for a podcast that goes through the Nerdist Network. So there you go.
Nice.
I would like to plug, as always, the show Grant and I run together. You Are Not Alone, an uplifting show about depression. Every month at the Magnet Theater. Also, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Hey, it's Aaron Gold. Or reach out to this show directly at Don't Mind Podcast on Twitter, Instagram. If you'd like to email us and have Walking Dead things you want to share with me, or just want to get mad at me about my Lost viewing habits, you can email us at don'tmindpodcast@gmail.com. Grant, do you have anything you'd like to plug?
No. You always ask.
I know. I just feel so rude not asking. I know. I feel like, oh yeah, these two people in front of me are people you don't get to plug. It just feels wrong.
You are a people.
You are a people.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Well, if you leave us a review on iTunes, I will read your name along with something that I like about you. So, going down that list, Sean Kimber. I like that you are like a lumberjack in the woods, but kind of doing your own spin with it. Kimber! Did not earn that.
Nope.
Oh, boy. Kaguhong. Kghuang. I like that you are an onomatopoeia. RW, spelled R-DUB-U. I like that you capitalize the R, but not the U. And that, initials are for suckers. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Alex seems still mad at me about Lost.
He's
Forever.
seething.
Yeah. Biggest Lost fan in the world, this guy. I'm pointing at myself.
I'm going to invite you on my podcast, which is really, I'm just going to kill you. I'm sorry.
Bring it on. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. And as always, keep on minding.